Guys, welcome to the episode. So on this one, I've got a few big bits of Thermolite left over from the build. As you know, this stuff's pretty expensive, so it'd be a waste just to chuck it out. I've settled on the idea of building a pair of seat boxes to go under the driver and passenger seats. The dimensions I've set on is going to be 450 by 550. So I've got all the side panels marked up now to cut. I've actually done them slightly oversized. They're actually 470 by 570. And now I've marked up the perfect 550 by 450, which I'm now going to cut them all at once and get 4 identical shapes. Another technique I've always used to get a really straight cut is to clamp one of my known flat bits of wood on top of the piece. Perfect cuts. So that's how good a cut all the way around you can achieve doing it that way. Okay, so there we have 2 lots of 4 panels. There we have it. There's a test fitment. No adhesive down yet, but that'll be next to come. So to initially adhere it, before we start putting glass down, I'm going to use this stuff. This is definitely the strongest sort of single pack adhesive I've ever used. That's really good for bonding panels and that sort of stuff. Right, so that's it, fully bonded and assembled. I've taken the screws out now. It takes a couple of hours to set. We bolted it together, so now's the best and cleanest time and method to remove the glue. Just with a simple razor, comes off pretty easy. I don't know what it'd be like after a full day. So we're now going to put on the lid. And then we have 2 complete boxes. Probably going to do a lot of the inside glassing, so for that we're just going to give the corners a coat of unwaxed laminating resin. For the actual bonding product, we're just using the unwaxed resin with some Cabasil. Pretty good, I think. Alright, so we're right to start laying our bits of chopped strand mat. Okay, so I've now cut my 8 internal side sheets and we're about to start laying a layer of resin down and putting each one of those in. I just used a fiberglass matting roller to just flatten everything out and eliminate any bubbles that were in there and just make it adhere that little bit better. I'm using about 250 ml of resin a side. That's us all done. Bottom and sides on both. Now I'm going to apply a couple of layers of flow coat to the interior of these. And for that, we're just using white polyester flow coat, catalysed exactly the same as the resin. So just going to be rolling it on exactly the same as the resin, same rollers, all mixed up here. I'm also sanding off this sort of overhanging stuff here, like I've done here. I gave the inside of them both one more coat of the white flow coat after they're sanded back, and then measured up and cut out some lids. So like we've done here, I'm just sanding all the overhanging, the slightly overhanging sides and edges flat. I'm putting a 6mm radius on every corner. I'm just using a 6mm router bit. So now it's time to completely wrap the outside in just fiberglass matting. So I'm going to wet it down with just resin. Now I'm not actually going to do each side panel individually. I've just done one really long sheet that's the same height as that. So I'm going to try and wrap it all the way around without any joins. So this will be interesting. It's all done, it's all covered. The only bits that there wasn't great coverage on were the very corners. So I'm just going to rip off some little patches to overlay onto them. I didn't record it, but I've just put down the first layer of white flow coat on the outside. It's gone off in a couple of hours, so I'm just going to put another one down now. So this is the surface after 3 rolled coats of the polyester flow coat. It's very dimply, lots of high spots, lots of low spots. If you're able to spray it, not roll it, you'd end up with a much better finish, but we weren't able to. So when it comes to sanding it, you're going to be up for a huge amount of work trying to sand this completely flat, sanding it to the point where you've sanded out all the low spots. But there's a way that's going to speed this up a lot. So to avoid using all the PPE and making just a huge dusty mess everywhere, just save yourself the time and wet sand it. It makes it so much easier. So first thing, we need to give it a pretty aggressive brief sand, and for that I'm just using the orbital and a 40 grit disc. So we're only going to give it probably half a dozen passes. We're just doing a brief aggressive sand. So just a couple of minutes sanding on every side. It's outside in the sun and dried out now. As per a flat blade, it's very flat all the way across, but still got lots of these little dimples that we need to get rid of. Okay, to fill these little dimples, giving it a wipe down with some acetone, as you always do. Mix up some white polyester flow coat. We're going to force it into these cavities using a filling blade. There we go. So that's it after the filling and the blade treatment. It's pretty much totally flat and light sand, and should be mirror flat. I'm going to go and sand all 4 sides now. Okay, they're all fully sanded and they came up pretty good. The only bit I'm just not quite happy about is on a lot of the corners and the edges. There's often a few of the glass fibers exposed and a few little dimples, and I don't want to particularly sand any further on the corners. So making something out of fiberglass, you wouldn't want to surface it with something as weak as that. You're just undermining your work. But using it to fill these little crevices and little dints, that's fine to me. That stuff dried in about 20 minutes, so I'm going to sand that back now. So it is a stinking hot Queensland night. It is about midnight and it's about 33 degrees. So perfect night to be working on these. I've sanded back all the spray filler. I actually just hand sanded them down with a disc in hand. Did exactly what I wanted it to do. It just filled the low spots in the corners. As far as I can tell, the surfaces are pretty flawless. So it's time to go on to the top coating. Had a look in the cupboard, and left over from the boat build, I have the perfect amount of 2-pack to do the job. We know how well the 2-pack came up, and the good thing is it's the same white as this, so it's going to match the top side. So first up tonight is going to be about 3 coats of Norglass Ship-Shape Primer Undercoat. Okay, we've given them a bit of a clean down with the Nor Clean, which is their recommended cleaner. We've mixed up that. In terms of spraying setup for the primer, the Ship-Shape primer, use a 1.8mm nozzle. In this sort of heat, I thin to the maximum, which is 30%, and set it to 60 psi. Okay, here we go. So these are cured for a night. The finish is just about perfect. Very little orange peel. It went on and settled down really well. So just with a light sand, they're going to be completely flat, ready for the top coat. Okay, we're all marked up. Measured and marked about 3 times. Just going to cut it out with a jigsaw. Jigsaw was able to get a really consistent cut around there just fine. But just with the angle grinder and the textured disc, I've just given these sides a bit of a hit. So when I lay matte and resin down there, it'll have something to bite onto. So just like the rest of the box, we've laid a bead of Cabasil in the corners, a 50mm strand of matting to bridge the corners, wet it out with just normal resin. Now in is going the base piece. So for the final sand back before the top coat of 2-pack, we're sanding back with a 320 grit. So there we have a completely sanded flat surface, almost as flat as a mirror. See the reflection there? So that's done with 320 grit. So after it's had just sort of a water wash down, I'm gonna give it a good clean with this, the Nor Clean, which is their recommended wax and grease remover. And you need to wipe any contaminants off it to the side as opposed to just scrubbing them in. Right, mixing up the last of the Norglass Northane top coat. So for the Northane top coat, it's 2 parts base, 1 part hardener, and 33% thinners. The last step before the final paint is just a quick once over with the tack rag. And that's a wrap on the painting. Really wigged out on the thinners a bit there, I think. So probably next time I might look at a bit of ventilation. We are all finished, cleaned up, paintwork's all done. It's come up a treat. It's completely flat. I did get one run. I did sand it out. And obviously often when you sand out a run, you go through the paint. But that's all right, because that's on the hidden side, so I'm just gonna leave it. Next up, we have hatches and cup holders to drill holes and fit. So it's really up to your preference and what you want to do with them. But all my holes, all my bolt holes, my drink holder holes, seat holes, all cut out. Bases cleaned up and marked. And I've got all the gear ready to stick it down. Here's the nervous bit. And we are complete and installed. Install went pretty well. Only thing I wasn't really happy with was The lines of sealant proved to be very difficult to put down on a rough surface and get a clean edge. But apart from that, all well. Cup holders in, all ready to good use. They're very stable. I ended up spacing them up on some whole sawed bits of HPDE sheet, just so the material was off the seat, off the base. So that's it for this one. I think there's only gonna be one more episode of the boat, so stay tuned. Thanks guys.